Wrestling fans, in 1990, what comes to mind? In WWE, what comes to mind in 1990? The Undertaker's debut. The return of the immortal Hulk Hogan, because the earthquake, 460 some odd pounds of him, squashing him to oblivion and putting him out of action for quite some time. The Ultimate Warrior becoming the WWE Champion and the Intercontinental Champion simultaneously. Rick Rude versus the Ultimate Warrior inside 15-foot high steel cage. The blue bars, the ones that look like they actually would hurt. Not the chicken wire ones that we see today, wrestling fans. Wrestling fans, what comes to mind in 1990? The end of Macho King Randy Savage versus Dusty Rhodes, and the beginning of the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase versus the American Dream. The rich man versus the hard-working, real American man. Right? What comes to mind in 1990? Well, when it comes to this pay-per-view, a pay-per-view in wrestling fans' minds that is kind of lackluster at best. A pay-per-view that really, when you look at it, in most fans' minds, it was just put together. It was just put together. And really, WWE, you really can't say anything. We really can't say anything about these pay-per-views. You know, fans back then, when we look at them now, when we look at pay-per-views now from back then, we really can't say anything about them. We really can't. Because fans watch the pay-per-views to see the competitors wrestle. They watch them to see the competitors wrestle. You know, now, it's all about the matches. It's all about how 5-star matches and 4-star matches, how great the match is. You know, we want to see, you know, the big name too there, but we have to have that good match. If the match sucks, we're going to tell you about it now. Back then, it wasn't so much about that. Dusty Rhodes versus the Macho King Randy Savage. We weren't going to say anything about that contest. Why? Because of the story leading up to it. Mr. Perfect versus Texas Tornado. Were we really going to say anything about that matchup? Were we really going to say anything about that? Warlord versus Tito Santana. The American Express versus the Orient Express. All of that plus so much more happened in 1990 at SummerSlam. Wrestling fans, if this is your first time into my channel, do yourself a favor by hitting that subscribe button and make sure you hit that bell for all notifications. Make sure you leave me a like down below as well, and leave me a comment down below as well. It helps push this video out and it helps the channel out as well because everybody sees the videos. Also, go back and watch anything you missed. If you like old school reviews of old school pay-per-views, I have a laundry list of them on the channel. Okay, I have them on the channel as well. So go and check those out. Alright? And if you like new school stuff as well, I do SmackDown and Raw reviews each week and the pay-per-views, preview and predictions, all that stuff as well. So, go and check that out. Now, let's dive into 1990 SummerSlam. Guys, it started off with the Rockers taking on Power and Glory. This was built around Shawn Michaels. What looked like he was going to take some time off, and Power and Glory, Dr. Style Slick, was finally going to get some wins under his belt. As we all know, Dr. Style Slick got 2 wins at SummerSlam that year. He got a win with Power and Glory, and he got a win with the Warlord. Didn't happen too often. Usually, his superstars came out and they lost. All you old school fans out there that are watching me right now, you know what I'm talking about. Power and Glory came out. They hit Shawn Michaels with the chain. And it was a 2-on-1 handicap matchup. Power and Glory versus Marty Jannetty. Short, sweet, to the point. Marty Jannetty had a little comeback here and there, but not enough to really matter. Now, does this win matter for Power and Glory? Of course not. They still went down their usual spiral downhill throughout the rest of 1990, throughout the rest of 1991, until we eventually did not see Power and Glory ever again. Lost to LOD. Didn't really have too much success, you know, once they split up. Didn't. 1990, they had a little bit of success, but eventually just dwindled out, you know, at Survivor Series and the main event. You know, they didn't win the main event. You know, so who cares about Power and Glory? Mr. Perfect versus Texas Tornado was next. And let me tell you something, wrestling fans. Let me tell you. WWE made a huge mistake when it comes to the Texas Tornado, Kerry Von Erich. Now, I'm not saying that putting the Intercontinental Championship was on the Texas Tornado was a huge mistake. What I am saying is, if you're going to put the Intercontinental Championship on somebody, and you're going to follow up with how you did with the Texas Tornado, then you made a huge mistake. You know, first off, you come into this pay-per-view and this Intercontinental Championship matchup with a 12-day notice. It was something like that. It was less than 2 weeks. Yeah. So, you do that. Mr. Perfect, acting perfect, saying he doesn't need a lot of training, doesn't need anything, and the Texas Tornado is just doesn't do much damage, and you don't need to know much about the Texas Tornado because Bobby the Brain, he didn't, you know, knows it all, and Texas Tornadoes doesn't do much damage because they're weak and they suck. Okay, that's cool. You know, I love the promo, but and you take the Intercontinental Championship off Mr. Perfect. Mind you, WWE's playing it like Mr. Perfect's shoulder was up. Okay, which means WWE 101, Mr. Perfect's going to get another opportunity at the Intercontinental Championship. He will get his rematch, wrestling fans. Okay, so what do? You take the IC strap off the Texas Tornado, put it right back on Mr. Perfect. And then what do? You give Texas Tornado Dino Bravo in a matchup that was lackluster at best. Go back and watch it. WrestleMania 7. You put Texas Tornado in a Survivor Series matchup at Survivor Series 1991, in teaming up with Sergeant Slaughter, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, and Tito Santana, and you beat a bunch of jobbers. You tell me. I think everybody would say, you made a grave mistake. Okay? Now, one thing I did like about the pay-per-view, SummerSlam 1990, is the fact that WWE had a lot of storytelling. A lot. You know, I mentioned earlier that, Dusty Rhodes and the whole Macho King Randy Savage ending. Well, wrestling fans, that happened this pay-per-view, and I like how they played it out at SummerSlam. Dusty Rhodes, Mean Gene Okerlund, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, all looking for Dusty Rhodes' manager, Sweet Sapphire. All over the building. Couldn't find her. She was there, but where was she? Just think. If WWE would do more of that type of storytelling now and have their matches, fans might actually like it. Doesn't have to be match. Doesn't have to be that type of storytelling with managers and people being lost and that kind of crap stuff. But look, storytelling during pay-per-views, during Raw, during SmackDown, stuff like that, along with the wrestling that we see on a Monday and Friday night, we might actually be happier with the product you put on. Not coming on here every week and cringing. But anyway, continuing on. So we have all of them looking for Sapphire. Same time, Sapphire is supposed to be facing Sensational Queen Sherry in a matchup in which Sensational Queen Sherry, who looks like a cat, is victorious. Ugh. She looked like a cat and she was, just downright ugly. Her outfit just looked downright ugly that night. Now, moving on, we see Demolition, Axe Smash, and Crush. Who's going to be allowed to be at ringside? Don't know yet. Because only 2 members of Demolition will be allowed at ringside. Taking on the Hart Foundation. Crush and Smash are the 2 that go down to face the Hart Foundation. Good contest. 2 out of 3 falls. This is where LOD and Demolition really pick up. Where a lot of wrestling fans think of it as LOD versus Legion of Doom Imposters. I don't necessarily agree with it, but a lot of wrestling fans tend to agree with that statement. Now, wrestling fans, when they look at this matchup, really good contest, really good matchup. One of the best on the card, if you want to know the truth, when it comes to wrestling itself. But Heart Foundation picks up the victory, 2 out of 3 falls, and LOD comes down and helps Heart Foundation pick up the 3rd fall, because Axe comes down and of course gets involved, for a little bit, and that's when LOD takes matters into their own hands and comes down and helps Heart Foundation. We see Bad News Brown versus Jake the Snake Roberts. Bad News Brown with 200 pounds of sewer rats, WWE proclaiming. And they show us a segment of his 200 pounds of sewer rats, which honestly look like a furball rat that you could buy at a gift shop in a cage. And Damien in the shower, which honestly looked like a snake. That it didn't look like Damien that Jake Snake Roberts came down with. But anyway, they showed that, and then they cut to the Big Boss Man and things of that nature, and a bunch of other promos. And then we had matchup. Big Boss Man was the special guest referee. Nothing to really say about this matchup. It sucked. Whatever. Orient Express took on Hacksaw Jim Duggan and Nikolai Volkov. The American Express. Once again, a nothing matchup. Another match that we're just like, we can't complain about it. We're wrestling fans. Back then, we watched the pay-per-view to see the stars. We didn't watch the pay-per-view to grade the match itself. We didn't. We watch to see the stars like AJ Styles now, Seth Rollins, and things of that nature. When The Undertaker comes back or something like that, we watch to see him too. But we also grade the match. Back then we weren't doing that. We weren't doing that at all. Right now we really wouldn't do that either. So it's like whatever. Dusty Rhodes versus the Macho King Randy Savage. There's nothing to really say about this matchup. That came on next. And it was there simply because the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, said, hey, everybody's got a price. And he took Sapphire. Got Dusty Rhodes distracted. Couldn't concentrate. And Macho King Randy Savage picked up the victory pretty easily, if you ask me. Did have some help from Sensational Queen Sherry, but whatever. This picked up the rivalry between $1 Million Man and Dusty Rhodes. After this, went straight to the double main event. The massive 467 pounds or 68 pounds Earthquake, I think that's what they said they weighed, took on Hulk Hogan. Dino Bravo and Jimmy Hart was in Earthquake's corner. And of course, Hulk Hogan had Big Boss Man in his corner. Now, wrestling fans, was this anything to talk about? Was this match anything to really talk about? Not Really. Hulk Hogan won by countout. He won by countout, so the rivalry could continue. I mean, honestly, that's it. He won by countout, so the rivalry could continue on to the Survivor Series, to the Royal Rumble of the next year. I mean, that's just it. Then, Ultimate Warrior versus Rick Rude. Good matchup. Rick Rude didn't win. Ultimate Warrior's first major title defense. But it was a good matchup. Good first opponent for the Ultimate Warrior. The man that took the Intercontinental Championship away from him at WrestleMania 5. So good first opponent for the Ultimate Warrior. And that was SummerSlam 1990. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, give me a big thumbs up, subscribe, and hit that bell, and leave me a comment down below. I hope you enjoyed this, and until I see you again, this is Webby, and I'll catch all of you on the other side. Talk to you later.